What if the biggest danger in war isn't losing? What if it's getting stuck in a war you can't win, but also can't escape? Because that may be exactly where Vladimir Putin is right now. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, many expected a lightning-fast victory. Instead, the war became a brutal, grinding stalemate that has reshaped global politics, revived NATO, drained economies, and turned Europe into the scene of the biggest land war since World War II. And now, Putin faces a series of dilemmas so dangerous that every option comes with serious consequences. This isn't just a war anymore, it's a trap. At the beginning, the Kremlin likely believed Ukraine would collapse quickly. The assumptions probably looked something like this: Kyiv falls in days. The Ukrainian government panics. The West argues endlessly and does nothing serious. Russia reasserts dominance over Eastern Europe. Simple, fast, decisive. Instead, Ukraine resisted. Western countries flooded Ukraine with weapons. And NATO, the very alliance Putin wanted to weaken, suddenly became stronger. Finland joined NATO. Sweden rushed toward membership. Which is a bit like trying to stop bees by hitting the hive with a baseball bat. Now Russia is stuck in what military historians call a war of attrition. What that means is, whoever can survive longer wins. And here's the strange part. Russia is both strong and vulnerable at the same time. Russia has more people, more artillery, huge natural resources, and a government that can tolerate massive losses. But long wars slowly poison countries by distorting economies. Young workers disappear into the military, and technology becomes harder to access. Eventually, the entire country and its economy starts revolving around the war machine. Imagine trying to run a normal economy while also building mountains of tanks and missiles every day. That's like trying to train for a marathon while carrying a refrigerator. Putin needs soldiers. But recruiting too many soldiers creates another danger: angry Russians. In 2022, Russia announced a partial mobilization, and suddenly, protests erupted. Hundreds of thousands reportedly fled the country, and panic spread across Russian cities. Because supporting a war on television is very different from being told, "Congratulations, you're going to the front line." So, Putin faces a brutal balancing act: mobilize too little, and Russia struggles militarily; mobilize too much, and domestic unrest grows. That's why Russia increasingly relies on financial incentives to boost recruitment numbers, targeting young men from poorer regions, recruiting prisoners and contract soldiers. The Kremlin is trying to fight a massive war without fully disturbing everyday life in Moscow, which is politically clever, but also incredibly difficult. Here's where things get really dangerous. What does victory even mean now? At the start, Russia seemed to aim for massive political control over Ukraine. Now, even defining success has become complicated. If Russia holds some territory, is that victory? If the war becomes a stalemate, is that victory? If Putin negotiates, does he look weak? Authoritarian governments often build power around the image of strength. And once strength becomes your entire brand, backing down becomes politically dangerous. Imagine spending years telling your country, "This war is essential for Russia's future," and then suddenly saying, "Actually, never mind." That's not an easy political outcome. Now we arrive at the most dangerous part. Russia wants to scare NATO without triggering a direct war with NATO. And that's why the Kremlin constantly uses nuclear warnings, missile threats, energy pressure, and aggressive rhetoric. It's strategic intimidation. But there's a problem. If Russia escalates too much, the West could respond even harder. But if Russia doesn't escalate enough, Ukraine keeps receiving more advanced weapons. This creates a terrifying balancing act. How do you appear dangerous enough to deter your enemies, without accidentally starting World War III? Not exactly an easy decision. At first, many people thought sanctions would destroy Russia's economy quickly. That didn't happen. Russia adapted better than expected. Oil kept flowing. Trade rerouted through countries like China and India. War factories ramped up production. But surviving is not the same thing as thriving. Because wartime economies often create long-term problems such as inflation, labor shortages, brain drain, dependence on military spending, and technological isolation. And perhaps most importantly, Russia is becoming increasingly dependent on China. Historically, Russia has always seen itself as a great independent power. But the longer this war continues, the more Moscow risks becoming the junior partner in the relationship. And great powers hate becoming dependent on other great powers. But Putin's biggest threat may not come from Ukraine, or NATO, or sanctions. It may well come from inside Russia itself. In 2023, Yevgeny Prigozhin launched a shocking mutiny against the Russian military leadership. For a moment, armed fighters were literally advancing toward Moscow. Fortunately for Putin, the rebellion failed. But it revealed something deeply uncomfortable. Long wars can destabilize authoritarian systems from within. Not always through revolutions. Sometimes through elite rivalries, military anger, or internal fractures. And once cracks appear, everyone inside the system starts wondering, how stable is this political situation really? And that is Putin's ultimate dilemma. Every option carries risk. Do you escalate the war, and risk direct confrontation with NATO, or just freeze the conflict? Alternatively, do you withdraw, and risk humiliation? Or even continue forever, and risk exhausting Russia itself? The war that was supposed to restore Russian power and prestige, but what has transpired may slowly be weakening it. And that's the terrifying logic of great power conflicts. Sometimes nations don't lose because they are weak. Sometimes they lose because they become trapped inside wars they no longer know how to end. And history shows, those wars can last far longer than anyone expects. Do you think this war ends in negotiation, stalemate, or escalation? Comment below. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. And thank you for watching.